Who is maybe the toughest dude ever. That knee injury he had against the Rams looked really bad, and he was like, there's no way I'm not playing. Hey, it's Dave Wyman. Time for Football 101. The Seahawks get a not so much applauded win in Tennessee, 30-24. There were some concerns because they were a 1-9 team going into that game, but a win's a win on the road. The thing I was super excited about was our offensive line, and particularly a couple of players, and they fall under a lot of criticism. It's the one position group that I think that people know the least about, and yet they complain about it the most because they don't know what their rules are, and you don't know, what their assignments are. But every once in a while, things will show up, certainly, and there's been some criticism that's, somewhat well-deserved. But I thought they did a great job. You look at the Tennessee Titans, like I said, 1-9, and their best player is that guy right there, Jeffrey Simmons, and it's easy to see in all these because of that red sleeve that he wore. He ended up with 1 pressure and 2 tackles. Offensive line did just a really good job. You see him lined up there, and you can see Anthony Bradford, that he's going to have to get a reach block and go outside and try to seal him off. And he gets a great first step and is able to get in that position. And then, you see as he's engaged with him, he starts to turn his hips and starts to kind of wall him off. And so, you got a nice run out of this play. And then at the very end, he was getting very frustrated. And at one point, he kind of threw his elbow down at Anthony Bradford there because he got blocked and he was mad. So, yeah, they're starting to kind of just chip away at Jeffrey Simmons almost on every single play. All right, here's another one on a run that Anthony Bradford has. And it's not an overly impressive block here, but it's just enough to get the running back into the second level. And so you can see Anthony fighting his tail off, and you look at Jeffrey Simmons almost gets that tackle. But, a lot of times it's just kind of getting in his way, just enough to let the running back get up to the second level. So nice job there by Anthony Bradford, guy that's under a lot of criticism, made a couple of nice plays so far. I love this one, and this one really stood out to me up in the radio booth. Because Charles Cross, he's blocking, they're running a running play to the left, and you see him at some point kind of gets out of bounds. And so, you see that he's all the way out of bounds. He comes back in, and this made it clear to me that they are really just trying to chip away at Jeffrey Simmons because he's out of bounds, and he comes back and just smokes him. And you see the final result there where he's on the ground, and and he got up and he got mad, and he was looking at the officials like, hey, how about a penalty here for whatever unnecessary roughness? But it just also another indication that wherever that guy is, we see that red sleeve he's wearing on his elbow, we're going to hit him. All right, here's another one with Oluwatimi, and like I said, they all kind of got in on the act, and so you see Jeffrey Simmons is lined up sort of where he's going to have to get outside of him and reach him, and he does. He gets there, and that's really hard for a guy that's snapping the ball and thinking about how he is going to get to that point where he can cut him off, and sure enough, here's K9 running through the hole, and look at this, body on a body right there, and he turns his hips, and Olu showed a lot of nastiness, and I think he's a super intelligent player, but one of the things I had on him was that maybe be a little bit nastier. Ray Roberts, our guy Ray, has talked about that a little bit. He was nasty. I loved it. And so anyway, he gets a great block here, and like I said, not dominant win, but they were definitely able to move some people up on the defensive line. Here's Zabel getting in on the act at the end of the play, and it's all about how he finishes here. But you see him engage with, there's that red elbow sleeve, and he's under him, he's got his hands on him, and then at the very end is what impressed me, is that he just finishes the block, and that's been a problem with the offensive line a lot of times. But you can't really see it, and that's the thing. In a lot of these shots here, you don't see Jeffrey Simmons. It's like he's enveloped by our offensive line. Anyway, he ends up getting thrown to the ground by Zabel, who is maybe the toughest dude ever. He told the coaches, because that knee injury he had against the Rams looked really bad, and he was like, there's no way I'm not playing. And so he had some other words about that too, which I can't share. But just an old school tough guy. He gets in on the act as well. This one might be my favorite. Now, it is a double team. So, I mean, you know, a guy like that splits double teams though. I don't see this happening to Leonard Williams. I don't see it happening to Jaron Reed or Byron Murphy. So this is just a really good double team block right here. And probably the best part of it is at the end. But right here, you can see that, you know, Olu and Gray Zabel. And Olu could probably have his head a little bit further this way, but they get the job done. And he, you know, a lot of times, and we saw that from Anthony Bradford and Zabel, they get the initial contact and then they're working their hips to get around and seal them off. And so, you know, the great double team right there. And there you see him falling again. And I think at the very end, like on the ground, you can't even see him except for, like I said, that red sleeve down there. But like, I mean, this is maybe the roughest game he could have possibly had. But, you know, you look at, and everybody we talked to in Tennessee was like, Jeffrey Simmons is the man. And the Seahawks really did a great job of neutralizing him. So, yeah, I mean, you look at this guy, I can't, you know, I said it's a complaint-free draft last year because you got Gray Zabel in the first round, and I think he was picked number 18. And he just is old school type of guy. Love the mustache, and I love his attitude. He really is like one of those tough guys that's going to play no matter what. So he has been just a great addition, and what a great first-round pick by John Schneider.